Put my glasses on.
All right, we are officially live. Welcome to the live stream. If you're just joining me, welcome. It's 11 a.m. Eastern time. If you're on the Eastern time zone, feel free to let me know where you're from. Today, obviously, I have here a special guest, Mr. Mark Daniels from Mark Inspiration. How you doing today, man?
Good. Great.
Yeah, man. That's what's up. Just for the people that don't know you, quickly describe, what your YouTube channel is about, kind of the work that you get into.
Okay, my name is Mark Daniels, Mark's Inspiration on IG, and YouTube is Mark Daniels, Mark's Inspiration. I started that a little over 2 years ago, basically because in life, I didn't know where I was going until I was about 30 and I got a mentor. And what I learned about life, I realized I need to share with younger people.
Mm,
So life really is an inside job. We're going to talk about that here.
mhm,
One of my first mentors told me, he said, happiness is an inside job. Well, everything in
mm,
life is an inside job. If you don't have the consciousness of something, you can never obtain it on the outside. You have to first have it within yourself before it will ever come to you on the outside. And if you do happen to gain something without having the consciousness to equal what you've gained on the outside or in the manifest world, you won't keep it long. That's why if they tell you if you inherit $1 million or if you win $1 million, you better become a millionaire because you won't have it
mhm.
for long. But with that being said, I have two books on Amazon. Coming Back Home: The True Adventure of Mark Daniels, which is a story of my life, which has been a hell of an adventure, which I created with my thoughts, and I relate that to the book as I write it. And the power is within, because that is where the power is at. Everybody
Mhm.
thinks everything is out there, but it's all within you, and everything happening in your outer world is coming from in here. So if you got a bunch of crap going on in your outside world, it's in here. You got to get that straightened out first, and then everything out there will clean itself up. So
Mhm.
that's a long introduction there, but that's kind of what I do, where I'm at, and what I focus on.
I love that. That's awesome. And I'll leave all his links down in the comment section if you guys want to check out his channel, check out his IG. But that's one of the reasons I brought you on the show because I remember we had originally connected through one of our other friends, Robert, Command Your Confidence. He was on the live stream last week,
Yeah, yeah.
and we had connected, and a lot of the things that we were talking about were revolving around that fact that like your happiness starts from within, the internal world is more important, and that's kind of
Right.
like the reflection of your external world, which is a lot of what I try to talk about on my channel, which I think it's a perfect segue into the first question that I had for you, which is basically
Okay.
like since we're going to be talking a lot about consciousness, how to be more conscious as a man, how to be more present in the moment. In your words, Mark, how would you describe what being conscious really means? Like in your definition, what would you say that is?
Okay. Well, one thing I think it is a word that describes it best is awareness.
Yeah.
Awareness of what's going on in the world. Most people run on program material every day. They do the same thing every day, over and over. They listen to the same things. They take in the same thing into their mind every day, and they wonder why their life never changes. So it's
Mm,
really awareness of that, and also of what you're thinking. No, most people don't think about what they're thinking about. And
it's
everybody
true.
knows, everybody's aware, even if they don't know anything about consciousness, that their actions are preceded by thoughts.
Hmm.
Okay, well, if that's the case, then you should be more aware of what you're thinking about. Now, you may be thinking about a car accident or something terrible like that. That doesn't mean you're going to have a car accident, but if you dwell on that, you're going to bring some kind of tragedy or at least some discomfort or a disagreement or something not comfortable into your life because you're thinking about something with emotion that
Mm,
makes you feel discomfort. So I'm not talking about passing thoughts. There's the old saying that a lot of trains pass through the station. You don't have to get on every one of them. These thoughts
mm,
come from out there. I mean, they come from, I don't know where they come from, but you have different thoughts in your mind. It's when you dwell on those thoughts, when you like worry. Worry is faith in reverse, or belief in reverse. You draw to you the things that you're worrying about. Maybe not the exact things, but to a certain degree, you will bring something into your life that is uncomfortable, that brings you discomfort, because you're allowing discomfort to live or to dwell within your kingdom, so to speak.
mm. Yeah, I would agree with that. I would say awareness is probably how I define consciousness as well. It's just kind of being attuned to what you're thinking, what you're feeling, what how your body is really reacting to things.
Right.
I really wanted to highlight something you said in there because I love the way that you put that about how you were talking about worry and you were talking about oh man, I just lost it. It was you were just
Yeah.
talking about
Happens to me too.
yeah, it was just on the tip of my mind, like, because it reminded me of a quote that somebody said. Um,
There is one that I've had a lot of troubles in my life, but not most of them never came to pass or something. There's one of those. I don't know if that would be what
mhm,
we have all these imaginings of these terrible things that are going to happen. And 90, there's a percentage, I don't know what it is, but it's up in the 90%. It never happens.
yeah,
So most of our problems are in imagination.
yeah. I'd say a lot of them stem from just overthinking or just things that we're kind of like worried about and focusing too much on, I think the outcome, not so much on the actual like action that we
Right.
have to like right in front of us. But that quote just came back to me and it was pretty much like you're gonna have all these thoughts that come in and out of your mind because that's what your brain does. It just
Right.
all it
Right.
does is just create thoughts. And I forget exactly who said this, but they were like, "You are the gatekeeper to your thoughts. Like you don't have to
Exactly.
entertain every single thought that comes in and out. Once you build that level of consciousness, that level of awareness, you can then say, all right, I'm going to entertain this thought because this is something that's going to help me. Or you get a negative thought, for example, you can easily discard it and say, I don't want to listen to that because it's only going to, pull me further away. So I think that's really important is understanding that you don't have to, give every single thought the same amount of attention.
Yeah, that's right. And that's where the proper use of the will comes in. A lot of
Yeah.
people think, I mean, will and self will can be used disastrously, of course. We can try to impose our will upon other people and we
Hmm.
piss people off, we step on their toes, we make people angry. Wars are a direct result of someone's will being imposed upon someone else's. But the
True.
proper use of the will is to control your thoughts. There's an old saying and he who takes a, I say, he who controls himself is greater than he who takes a city. It's very
Mm,
easy to overcome someone else, but to overcome yourself is a much greater challenge. And that's where the
mhm,
proper use of the will comes in. And if you have a weak will, it's a really good chance your life is a mess. And the will can be strengthened by disciplinary acts. It could be anything like taking one less bite when you're eating, or don't drink
mhm,
that whole glass of soda or milk or whatever it is. Or working out is a good example. Go to the gym. When you force yourself to do something every day, it doesn't have to start out to be big. It can be a small thing. Social media. Maybe you have a tendency to check your phone all the time. Okay.
mhm,
Start only checking it once an hour if you're checking it 3 or 4, 5 or 10 times an hour. These little things add up. Many people think they have to do something big to change their will. It's the small things you do over a consistent period of time is what will
mhm,
change you on the inside. And you are the king of this kingdom. You're the one that decides what goes in here, what stays in there, what you want to program that with. Most of us are programmed until we're 7 years old. It's called the impression period. We don't have enough conscious, we'll call it strength, to differentiate between what is real and what is not, what is true and what is false. For
mhm,
example, when I was growing up, I heard things like this: you don't have enough sense to pound sand in a rat hole. You don't have the sense you were born with. And on it goes. You're never going to amount to nothing. Okay,
mhm,
so basically what that's saying is you're worthless, you're stupid.
mhm,
Now, so you hear that when you're young and you take it as the truth because your parents or whoever's raising you, they're like gods to you because in your mind and your reality at that time, they give you food, shelter, everything. Without them, you would die. I mean, you
mhm,
wouldn't, but as far as when you're a kid, you think that is the case. So these things they tell us, and then of course now once we become adult, we can spend the rest of our lives blaming our parents, or we can do something about it. Take responsibility. You weren't responsible then for what was put into your mind, and you really had no defense against it. But now you do, and it's up to you. But yet, people go through their lives watching the news every day. letting all this garbage come in. I think they say
Yep.
average person gets 5,000 different advertisements, either some way comes into your mind every day. If you're not
Yeah.
programming yourself consciously or being aware, then someone else is with their agenda.
Hmm. I love how you ended that because I literally try to say the basically the exact same thing in a different way. Like when you're focused on your direction, like you have a focus that you want to work on or things that you are like pinpointing your life towards, then that is your direction. Like if you're not having that, then somebody's pulling you in some direction.
Exactly.
Like you might not know what that is, but it's happening. And I think like I love that we're talking about societal conditioning too, because that's a big piece of this. Is like a lot of the times growing up, we're exposed to a lot of different things that can create these negative thoughts or these negative patterns of thinking, whether it's your parenting, upbringing, like you mentioned, media, news, social media, friends, like
Right.
whoever you're around. How big of a factor is environment when it comes to conditioning your mind in a positive way? Because I think that's really big too.
Well, I think it's a great difference, especially if you look at people who grow up in poverty as compared
Yeah.
to someone who grows up in a rich neighborhood. What happens is the person in poverty that has been raised in poverty can get out of it, but it's very difficult because all their life they've seen we can't afford, we can't afford that, or we don't have the
Hmm.
money to pay this bill. That's a bill collector. Don't talk to them. Or what do you think? Money grows on trees. You think we're the Rockefellers. I mean, there's this ad infinitum of expressions for people who
Hmm.
talk lack. As we're in the rich neighborhood, the rich kid doesn't grow up seeing it. He grows up seeing opportunities. He sees abundance. He sees his parents learning, or let me see, working on making more money. They're not looking in life as a lack. And we may say, well, that's because they're rich. Well, it's the way they think, is what it is.
Hmm.
So, yes, so back to your question, environment forms us as we're growing up. But then we need to get ourselves, if we want something different, into a different environment of people. You become part of what you are around. And you've probably heard this, if you're hanging around with 5 millionaires, you'll become the sixth. Well, if you're hanging around with 5 losers, for lack of a better way to say it, you're going to become the sixth too. It's
Hmm.
very difficult to be around something and not pick up on it, even if you dislike it. And I'll throw this example out there. Some of you, some of your subscribers may have done this. You listen to the radio, which I will listen to the songs occasionally, and I don't listen to the commercials. But song comes on, you don't like that song. It's got lyrics in it that just they irk you. But maybe after a month, this doesn't happen to me much now, you find yourself singing that song.
Love it.
So how does that happen? You hated that song, but whatever
Hmm.
you hate or love will be drawn into your reality. So
Mm.
it's very important. It's just very important. People don't realize you are the king of the kingdom within yourself, and everything is a projection. Just look around your life today. What is in your life? Okay, you've brought it. That is exactly what you wanted. Your life is exactly how you brought it to yourself this very day. Now it's great to want more, but everything you have today is something you wanted yesterday. So you
Mm.
need to be grateful for what you have today. And that gratitude, just like negativity, is a magnet. When you're grateful for what you have, it draws more into your life. Some people say, I don't have nothing to be grateful for. Man, you need to travel out of the U.S. I'm telling you what,
For
we
real.
live in paradise here and we don't even know it.
Hmm.
I mean, I've been out of the country 30, 35 times, and it's tough out there, man. It's dangerous.
Hmm.
There's a lot of things, people die every day from lack of food, clean water, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, we turn the water on, let it run. We drink bottled water. I mean, I got 6 kids, 21 and under. They drink, they're so used to bottled water, they don't want to drink water out of the faucet. I mean, it's what they become accustomed to. They don't know the contrast to how good they have it to how bad it is in other parts of the world.
Mm. Yeah, man, that's powerful because I know that's we could probably take that in a couple different directions, but I agree. Like gratitude is everything, and it's so funny how you can almost look at something like me and you could look at something. It could be the exact same thing, but both of our lenses could be different. We could be viewing it in a different way. Like
Exactly.
I could look at a house that isn't even built yet and think, man, that's gonna take fucking forever to build. Like that's gonna take a lot of hard work, and it's just never gonna happen. And while somebody else could look at that and say, man, it's going to take a couple months, but eventually I'm going to see a house. And they see
Right.
that finished product. So it's just funny the way that perspective kind of plays into this when you're talking about that conditioning, and um, how you view something is everything when it comes to awareness.
What is the old? I have a hard time saying this. I get confused, but we don't believe what we see. We don't believe what we see. We see what we believe.
Yeah.
And that's so true. Like you said, everything we see is filtered through our life experiences. That's
Hmm.
why to argue with someone about certain subjects, it's ludicrous, because in their it's true for them.
Hmm.
Excuse me, it's true for them. Well, how can that be? There's only one absolute truth. No, that's not true. Let me give you an example here. World War II. There's this warship coming up on this American destroyer.
Hmm.
So, and it's got I don't know, some the cannons aimed at it. Okay, and so they shoot the 50 caliber machine guns, and they kill the guy that was gonna get ready to shoot the cannons. Okay, everybody claps, everybody's happy, and then they destroy the cruiser, the smaller boat. Okay, those guys, they're happy. It's a victory. They're great. Okay, they're heroes, right? Okay, they destroy
Hmm.
him. Now, but from the other point of view, from the enemy's point of view, that man that they killed with the gun, he was, and the families of the men in there, they all had families
That's
and
true.
kids. Were those Americans heroes to those guys? No, they weren't. They were villains. So
Right.
how do you? I mean, it's amazing. We got a sniper over here. He gets 100 kills. Oh, he's a hero. He's a war hero. And I'm not belittling either one. The point I'm making here is, but from
Hmm.
the other side, he's not a hero. He killed the father, the husband of children and wives. I mean, so it's perspective, really. It is the way you see things, and what side of the fence you're standing on. So
Hmm.
we have so much disagreement here in the U.S., and people, they want everybody to see things their way when they're not. They don't realize that you can't make anybody else see things the way you see them, because they can't get inside of you and look at them through your filters and your life experiences.
Hmm. That's very true. And that's a very interesting point about the World War II story that you mentioned, because like that is all true. I mean, whether you're for one side or for another side, you're always going to think that you're in the right, that you are correct. Whether that is right or not, I mean, to you it might be right, but the other person, it could be wrong. And it reminds me of another quote. I'm just like pulling out all these quotes as we're talking about this, but it's like, the things that you look at. What was the quote? It was when you change the way you look at things, the things that you look at change. And like
Yeah.
that's to me that it's just so true, because like I could look at something and think the worst, but
Right.
it's only going to start like you almost like have that self-fulfilling prophecy when you think about stuff like that. Like,
Exactly.
well, if I'm like, oh man, I'm never going to be successful, I'm never going to work out, I'm never going to get a good physique, I'm never going to be a millionaire, and all that stuff. Well, if you continually tell yourself that, you're basically brainwashing yourself to think, you know what, I'm never going to do it, because you're in
Exactly.
belief that that's impossible. But the same can be
Exactly.
said on the opposite end too. So yeah, like I guess maybe that's a good question for guys out there watching, is how do you think men can start to almost brainwash themselves, but in a good way, to help them get the results that they actually want in life?
That's really a simple. There's a simple method to that you can do. The problem is most people are not determined, consistent
Yeah.
enough. They don't persevere, because everything that you are now has been put into your mind by someone else or yourself. Mostly, most people, the masses, are programmed by someone else: news, media, government,
Hmm.
whatever it has, family, friends, whatever it happens to be.
Yep.
But what is your story? Ask yourself now, what is your
Hmm.
story? Now, I'll back up just a little bit. I want to say this about, and this goes along with what you're saying now. If you want to be in the top 1% of the people in the world, just have a written goal. Less than 1% of the people in the world have a written goal.
That's
Well,
true.
why do I have to write it, Mark? Because when you write it, it becomes tangible.
It's real.
It's real. So, and moving along with that, okay, what is your story? What is your story? I was raised up. My dad was an alcoholic, and mom and dad never told me they loved me. They never hugged me, and I never seen them kiss. And I just, is that my story? Or do I look at it this way? Mom and dad worked hard. They showed me a good work ethic. I always had food. I always had clothes. I had a home. I've lived both of those stories. Now, and that's in the
Mm,
past. Now, what story do I want to live today? Okay, I
mhm.
have my story written on my wall. It's one, two, three, four, five, no, I'm up five, six, 9 pages long of how I want my life to be. Every
Mm.
day I read that once a day. Some days I don't have the feeling in it, but I do it. Okay. Some days I can really feel it and experience it in my mind. I've been doing that. I've been doing the story thing for probably a year and a half, 2 years. Okay.
Mm.
Many of those things have come to pass. Most of it is about changing my character. There are some tangible material things I want, different levels of income and different things like that. But I do that twice a day. I also have it on a recording where in the story on the wall I say I am. That's the way like it's
Yep.
now, not I will be, but now. And
Mhm.
then the recording it says you are Mark Daniels. You are this, or you are doing this, or whatever it happens to be. I do that twice a day, right before I go to bed, and I play it when I get up. I don't necessarily always sit there and listen to it, but it's playing. And
Yeah.
I'll compare that to our latest, the last 2 years of this certain health crisis. I won't mention what it was, but you can guess. Okay, there was constant advertisement and
Yeah.
promotion and for lack of a better way to say it, you'd be in the Walmart or Kroger buying food, and in the background, get your,
Always.
all. So
Mhm.
these things affect people unless you're aware of what's going on, and
Yep.
you regardless of what your belief on it was. I'm not advocating or going against it. I'm just saying that these things change the way you think without you even realize it unless you're aware of these things. When you're aware of
Mhm.
it, you can go. If you don't agree with the narrative, then you can go against it. If you agree with it, then you just go right along with it, whatever your stance happens to be. But this is how they get people to do things, and it's the same way you do that to yourself.
Yep.
When you look in the mirror, what do you say to yourself? You say, "Oh man, I'm kind of overweight here. I'd like getting better shape. Man, my arms aren't big enough." Or do you look at yourself and say, "God damn, you look great. Man, you look
Mhm.
fantastic." I'm 62 years old, okay, and I'm in great shape. I can work as hard. I have a very physical job. The other thing that I do, I had my
Mhm.
boys work for me. I can outwork them boys. I still can, So I mean, but I don't buy into. And that's another thing. When you're 55, they tell you you're a senior citizen, and they start with this American retired person, all this stuff telling you to slow down.
Yeah.
But once again, if you buy into that, guess what? That's true for you. You know how many men
Mhm.
I talk to in their 40s that feel like they're done. 35, 45, they're
Yeah.
done. It's bullshit. I mean,
Mhm.
you know who I admired when I was in my 20s? I was doing triathlons. I boxed amateur and professional too. I go to the 10K races, 5K marathons, whatever. I'd see these guys in their 50s, man. They were ripped. I thought, man, I
Mm.
want to be like that. Well, I'm 62 today, and I am like that. Today, when I meet guys in their 80s and they're still out there getting after it and they're working,
Jeez.
I talk to them because I want to be like those guys. I don't want to
Mhm.
retire. I mean, what do you retire from? I mean, I can understand if you worked at a job for 30 years like my dad, McDonnell Douglas, or my mom, Monsanto. It's like that's a whole different thing, but that's not me. I can see them wanting to get out there. And if that's what you're doing, that's fine, but don't think about doing nothing when you get out of there. Think about what you're going to do with your life because life begins when you decide it begins. It's not ended when you're 40, 50, 60, or 70 years old. Grandma Moses, do you know who she was? She did some
Mhm.
she started painting at like 70 years old because her husband had died. And you had to look that one up. Anyway, she painted up until she was 90 years old, and her paintings were worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. But see, she
Jeez.
didn't paint because she was a housewife a long time ago, and they told her, no, you need to be a housewife. But when her husband died and her kids were gone, she started doing that. I mean, like she started at 60 or 70 years old. And there's other stories like that too. So, but that goes back to what we're talking about programming.
Mhm.
If you listen to societal programming, guess what you're going to do? You're going to do what they want you to do. And it's
Yeah.
to get health care, retire. Hey, you're getting older, get on some medications. Hey, you got this problem. There's a pill for every ill. I don't take any medications. I'm not anti doctor. I will take it if I need it, but I don't take anything. I choose to look within first. What's going on in my life that could be causing this? because
Mm-hmm.
everything comes from your mind. Everything comes from within.
Mm-hmm.
Probably got off on a rabbit trail there, but
No, I mean, I was just like wrapped into the story, man. I agree with pretty much everything you said. Like, it's everything really does start from within, and it reminds me of another thing that a quote that I heard before about um talking about the things that you. Man, I had it and I lost it again. I've been losing all these quotes.
yeah, it happens to me. I know Wayne Dyer was the one that, or at least that's where I read the last quote you made.
Yeah, that's actually where I got a lot of these quotes from was him. But no, and I remember that you were mentioning like not you don't have to follow the path of what everybody wants to do because if you're if you want to be just like society and like the masses, then go ahead and listen to what everybody's saying, and then you'll be just
Exactly.
like them. So you kind of have to create your own narrative, like you were saying. You have to create your own path. I know for a couple even famous actors, I think it was Samuel L. Jackson, I believe, who I don't think he got his, or maybe it was Denzel Washington, one of those two. Didn't have their big break until they were like 45 years old. Then they started to get in big time, like A-listing movies. So, there's really no time frame for
Right.
success or, where life should start or should end. It's all comes back to that conditioning. Um,
Yeah. People
but I
don't.
think
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think it comes back to that awareness is like when you know that that's happening, then you can now kind of you have a little bit more control over it.
Everything in my life I've wanted, I've gotten. And everything
Yeah.
that I thought I wanted and I didn't get, looking back in retrospect, I realized that I didn't want it. See, that's another thing. Here's something else people need to do that they don't. You need to contemplate. Shut the damn radios, TVs, everything off. Find a place that's quiet. There is no complete quiet. Even if you go in the woods, you got the animals and the sounds of the forest. But you need to think. Think about how your life is. Think about how your life got to where it is. Think about where you want your life to go. How are you going to get there? Okay. Now, when I say how are you going to get there, what I mean is what's the first step?
Hmm.
Because really the how is none of your business. I mean, you can set a goal, and of course, let's say I want to run a marathon. I set a goal. Well, of course, I have to run, but that's really all I know. I don't have to get into the the specifics of everything right off the bat. I know I have to run. Maybe I can't run at all, so I go out and I run a quarter mile or whatever it happens to be, and I come back home and I lay on the couch because I'm about half dead. How am I ever going to run a marathon? Well, the next day you go out, you run a little further and a little further, and eventually you get to where you can do that. But you know the next step. But so many times in life, many people never start because they can't see the whole journey. I love
Hmm.
what Martin Luther King Jr. said. You don't have to see the whole staircase, just take that first step.
Yeah.
Very important. See, you take the first step, and guess what happens? The next step is revealed to you, and the
Hmm.
next, and the next. So, okay, a real life example. Did I think I'd be sitting there talking to you? No. Did I sit down 2.5 years ago when I decided to do a YouTube channel? Like, well, you know what? I'm going to be talking to this guy Tino. Let me see. We're going to be talking about consciousness and hell no, I didn't know. But here's
Right.
here's where the problem or the challenge lies. You have your vision, you write it down, you start visualizing, you see it, you feel it. Man, sometimes you even get excited about it. You maybe even cry because you're so happy because you've achieved it in your mind. All of a sudden, then, like this, let's say a guy, you asked me to be on the show. I've done this before, so it's easy for me. But
Hmm.
let's say somebody really that you admire that's doing what you want to do asks you or gives you an opportunity. Guess what's right in front of you? Fear.
Hmm.
This is a bridge of incidents which has come, and you have to walk across that to get to where you. Always, when you walk across these bridges, there's giant trolls underneath, and you're afraid to cross that bridge. And that's
Yeah.
what it is, that fear. If there's a devil, it's doubt and fear because it has destroyed more dreams and visions and goals than anything else. You have to
Hmm.
walk through the fear. And when you do, you get that as a man anyway. I'm not a woman.
Yep.
As a man, you get that feeling of exhilaration and fulfillment. Men are too much, and I've done this, so I know men are too much trying to find fulfillment in a woman. And I
Yep.
love women. I've been married 4 times. I've had 10 kids. So I love women. All right, and I still date. But what I'm saying is, is they get to where they think that that's, you know, I'll get a woman and everything, that's my life, that's going to fill my life, I'm going to be complete, or whatever it is they think. And that's not the deal. You got to be complete as a man now. You got to have a vision, a goal, a purpose in life that's bigger than yourself. Okay, so you say, well, I don't know what that is, Mark. Okay, but you have within yourself a desire. It occasionally bubbles up, but you push it down because you say things like this to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have enough money. I can never do. How am I going to do? There's no way I can do that. So you push it away with your rationalization and logic, which has nothing to do with the greatest creativity that's ever happened in the world. I mean,
Mm.
look at all these people. Marconi was put in an asylum by his best two friends because he thought he was crazy enough to think that he could transmit voices through the air without wire, because at that time all they had was wire telegraph and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they locked it up. The Wright brothers, when everybody thought they were crazy because nobody could fly. That was
Right.
reserved for the birds. God had reserved that privilege for the birds. So the first account at Kitty Hawk, a lot of newspapers would not print that because of what people thought of that. I mean, you can go throughout history and you
Yep.
see the examples of people saying, "Well, that's subjective." Well, maybe they didn't use that term back then. Oh, that's your dreaming. That's it. But
Mm-hmm.
everything you see in front of you right now that was created by man was first within man in a vision, in an imagination. If they should be teaching anything in school, it's how to use your imagination.
Yeah.
Einstein said imagination is your preview of coming attractions. He also said imagination is more valuable or more powerful than knowledge. Knowledge is limited. Imagination will take you anywhere. And even though
Mm-hmm.
throughout history, Marcus Aurelius, people have said that. Lao Tzu, I think, is another one, have said things about imagination. We don't pay attention to it. We don't teach it. We
Mm-hmm.
don't. So, we have a great power within us. We just
Mm-hmm.
need to use it.
Yeah. That's facts, man. I mean, even this computer, like even kind of like following up with that analogy they're using, even the stuff like this camera right here, this computer, I mean, people thought that was insane,
Exactly.
50, 60 years ago or
When I was a kid, yeah, it was
whenever. Yeah.
Buck Rogers shit. I don't know if you know who Buck Rogers was.
I've heard of that. I've definitely
Okay.
heard of it.
He was like some guy that traveled throughout space and stuff. At that time, nobody had been to the moon yet.
Yeah.
If they actually went there, I don't know. Some people don't believe they did. I don't know. Really don't care.
Mhm.
But yeah, to think about picking up a phone and talking to someone, even in my teens in the 70s, and talking to someone in China or South America,
It's
and
unheard of.
being able to see them, even in the 90s when I met my last ex-wife, uh, she was in Latin America. When I talked to her, she'd have to go to a payphone, and I would call her at a certain time of the week, and it would cost like $5 a minute, and that was in
Jeez.
90. That was in '99. And now I talk to girls and people all over the world just within
Mhm.
seconds, and I can see
Right.
them and talk to them like we're speaking here now. Now, if you've
Mhm.
grown up with that, that's no big deal. But I didn't grow up with that. It's just
Yeah.
amazing.
Mhm. It's true. It's like they say, everybody's a lunatic until something works out, and then they're a
Yeah,
genius. So it's
right.
like everybody was doubted at one point until, anytime you're doing anything that's never been done before, or
Exactly.
even in your family. Like let's say your family's never been like no one in your family's ever been a millionaire. No one in your family has ever been really successful in business. Well, if you're the first one to do it, obviously no one can see that because it's
Right.
it's not in their reality quite yet. So they don't know that that's possible. So, and it comes back to what you were saying about just taking that first step. And that's something I really try to promote on this channel too, is like just do what's right in front of you. Like don't focus so much on the
Yeah.
outcome. Like it's great to have a goal, and like obviously we all have goals, and me and you have really big goals obviously, but I'm not like looking at that goal and being like, all right, this is going to be it next month or tomorrow this is going to happen. Like you got to break it down systematically to weekly,
Right.
daily, like every single day what are you doing? Because that's the only way to actually make it happen.
Yeah.
So you gotta break these goals down into small achievable wins
Yeah, and when things don't go the way you want them to, which is 90% of the time,
most of the
you
time.
got to,
Yeah.
and that's where I think it comes in handy to believe in something greater than yourself. I'm not a religious guy, but
Yeah.
I believe that when things aren't going the way I want them to, I believe they're going exactly how I want them to. I can't see the
Yeah.
big picture. Whenever we judge with our senses, we're in trouble. because the people that we've been talking about, these great people who have achieved so many things, they didn't judge with their senses. Had they judged with their senses, they would have stopped. They would have quit. They wouldn't have believed what they were going to do was even possible. And back to
Mm-hmm.
what we started out, everybody has that dream or desire to do something within them, but they rationalize it away with their cognitive, their rational mind. And whenever you
Mm-hmm.
allow your rational 2 plus 2 is 4 mind to run your life, you won't accomplish much. But back again to school. And I don't mean to be bashing school, but I think it's great we learn how to read, write, add, subtract. But they teach us to memorize. They teach
Exactly.
us to be logical. I don't know if you heard this before, but my dad heard it, my kids heard it, I've heard it. If you don't finish high school, you're never going to get a good job. Well, jobs are
Yep.
great, but I like the just over broke for the. It's an acronym. Is that what they say for a job? No, there's
Mm-hmm.
some great jobs out there, but it's not for me. I quit school. My dad quit school, and they told me the same thing. You're never gonna like. But I'm telling you what, if you believe that, guess what? You're never gonna amount to anything. You're never gonna be able to
Mm-hmm.
get a good job. Well, there's no sense in me trying to do that. I never got a high school education. I can't do that. I make more than
Mm-hmm.
the high school teachers and the superintendent. I'm not quite sure what the superintendent makes, but I'm in 6 figures and I know he is too. So, but the point
Mm-hmm.
is, I have no education. Okay, I believe in education, but education is something that inspires you. I mean, I've read hundreds of books. I love to study metaphysical. I love to study the dynamics of relationships between men and women.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I can take these things and help people with them. I can use those things. I read every day, twice a day, usually, sometimes more. I listen to Audible books. And that's what I'm talking about. If we go back to, if you're not programming yourself, someone else is with their agenda. Why not
Right.
program yourself with your agenda? Because these things change the way you think. And when your thinking changes, your life changes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man, that's so true. And like I I was just talking about that with somebody else, kind of to bring it back to the school thing for a second. Like I was just saying that to somebody a couple of days ago about how school, is as helpful as it can be. I think a lot of the times it teaches young people to be less conscious, kind of bringing it back to full circle, about the
Yeah,
consciousness thing. It doesn't teach you to be self-aware. They don't teach you to be conscious and aware of your desires, your motivations, what inspires you, your passions. Like you're not taught that in school because, being part of the system, they want you to be that worker, be that factory
yeah,
line employee type of person. So it comes back to that conditioning again, like when you're aware of this and you know that um the path that you're being led down is something that is kind of an agenda put there by somebody else, then you have the power to now change it.
right.
So it kind of comes back to again, these quotes are just like flowing out of this conversation because there's just so much that we could talk about. But it's like if you don't want somebody's life, then don't take their advice. And if you're
Exactly.
taking somebody's advice who's no disrespect to anybody, but a 9 to 5 worker for 50, 60 plus years, and they hate their lives and they're miserable all the time, I wouldn't really listen to them if I'm trying to be a millionaire, an
Right.
entrepreneur.
Right. You got to be willing to take some risks. I mean, I've lost
Yeah.
everything. How many times have I lost everything? 2 or 3 times. Okay, my house, cars, everything, and almost
Yeah.
lost my freedom a couple times. Actually, I had to leave the country once. That's in the book because to avoid prosecution because I went after the local system and they didn't like
Mhm.
that very much. But and then I ended up having to leave another country because I run into the same thing there. Because here's the deal: whatever you run away from, you will run into because you're actually running away from yourself. Now,
Mhm.
but if you look at it like, well, I was running away from the law because they were trying to frame me or whatever it happens to be. But actually, I created that situation because I treated them as an enemy. Okay, so
Mhm.
thus I made an enemy. I tried to, how do I say? I wouldn't say destroy, maybe, but something like that, and thus it came back on me. But I wouldn't trade. I'm friends with all those people now. We've since cleared all that up. Um, but these things, looking back in retrospect, I needed because I needed to be beat down. Now, I was
Mhm.
beat down when I was about 30, and that's when I started changing, started looking for answers because I had been living my life for myself. And I ended up in an apartment by myself one night, and I thought, I looked in the mirror and I hated what I saw. And I thought, I'm by myself because that's all I ever thought of was me. It was all
Mm.
about me. And it was kind of a epiphany for me. I'd like to say that everything just miraculously changed overnight in a flash of light, but it didn't. It was a long road from then on. But I got a mentor shortly after that, and he helped me. And from then on, I've had mentors, and I've read and studied and learned how this thing called life works. Do I know all about it? Of course I don't. I'm constantly learning every day. But one of the most important things I can tell you is decide what you want your life to be like. And
Mm-hmm.
most people don't know what the hell they want. They don't like what
Yep.
they have, but they can tell you all the things they don't want, but they don't know
Right.
what they do want. Write down a list of all the things you don't like about your life, you don't want. Okay, and then on the opposite side of everything, put down how you would like it. I want this, or I am this. Better yet, put down, let's say I'm miserable, I am happy, I'm poor, I am rich, whatever it happens to be, whatever you want in life. I'm single,
Mm-hmm.
I'm married, or I have a girlfriend.
Mm-hmm.
Focus on what you want, because that is what you're going to draw into your life. Now, when I
Mm-hmm.
say it, I tell people, say, if you want money, you got to focus on money. And they'll say, well, I think
Yep.
about money all the time. Yeah, you do. You know what you think about?
Not having
I want to,
it.
yeah, I want to go on a trip, and I don't have enough money. And I still
Right.
battle some of that too. Don't get me wrong. Um, yeah, I want that car, but I can't afford the payments. Man, how am I going to pay the rent? Guess what? You're going to get more and more of that. You got to focus on what you have. There's a story
Mm-hmm.
in the Bible about, I'm not a religious guy, about this old widow, and the prophet came. Okay, and she didn't have any oil, which was very important back then for the lamps and everything. He says, "How
Mm-hmm.
much oil do you have?" And she says, "Well, I only have 3 drops." He says, "Bring in vessels." He said, and they focused on the 3 drops, and her vessels were running over. It's just
Mm-hmm.
really my belief of this. Just my belief of how the Bible is. It's a metaphysical analogies or stories about. It's about every man.
Yeah.
That's the way I look at it, and I look at it as a spiritual or metaphysical. Metaphysical just means beyond the physical. So
Mm-hmm.
those are stories, and I use those and integrate them into my life. Okay, I'm not a widow and I don't have oil, but maybe I'm kind of hard up and I need something. Okay, well, money. Well, what do I have? Okay, I got $10. Okay, well, it's great. I got $10. Are my bills paid? Yeah, they're paid. Am I okay today? Yeah, I'm fine today. Ah, but I got to pay that rent next weekend. I don't have the money. Things like that. See, but you don't want to think about things like that. You want to think about yourself as already having it and paying it. You don't want to think I will have it. You want to think I have it now and try to get the feeling of the person and act like that person. And back to the other thing, when you look in the mirror, tell yourself what you want. Tell yourself you love yourself every day. Okay, if
Mm-hmm.
you look in the mirror and tell yourself that you love yourself and you feel stupid, you got to work on yourself. Tell
Mm-hmm.
yourself long enough that you come to believe it. Because guess what? When you love yourself, other people love you. If you think you're great, other people think you're great. If you think
Yep.
you're handsome, other people will think you're handsome. If you think you're a 10, I'm talking about really believing it. I'm
Mm-hmm.
talking about when you look in the mirror and say, I don't know if you guys cuss, but if
Yeah,
you
go
say,
for it.
I'm a fucking 10. Man, I'm the hottest looking, you say that and you fucking believe it and feel it. I
Mm-hmm.
guarantee you the world will bear witness to that. What do I mean by that? You'll be out and you'll see girls looking at you. And yeah, they're looking at you. Somehow or another, it draws people into your life to bear witness to make this true into your life. Now, it's not going to happen in a day or a month, maybe even 6 months. It might take a year. But if you're consistent with your affirmations and you're saying that with emotions, it will come to pass. How
Mm-hmm.
do you think they brainwash people in the certain, like when they capture somebody, a prisoner? What they do
Yeah.
is they tell them a lie over and over enough, and they get them in various emotional states. Usually it's depressed, or sometimes they'll bring them up and then they'll crash them down. They'll tell them, like, hey, we're going to let you out. And then they, laugh at them, throw them, you fool. And then they tell them the same thing. And eventually these strong-willed Marines or whatever they happen to be, soldiers, Navy, SEALs, whatever, they start to believe that. Okay,
Yeah.
it's the same thing with self affirmation. You don't always feel like you are what you say you are when you look in the mirror, when you're telling yourself you're great. Sometimes you may be depressed, sometimes you're happy, but you're telling yourself these affirmations in varied states of emotions, and eventually they imprint the subconscious mind. And somehow, I believe the subconscious, connected with superconscious or universal mind, it will bring this into your reality. But you have to have the consistency to do it over and over. People try affirmations a week, a month, it don't work. Really,
Mm-hmm.
it don't work. How'd you become what you are today? Why do you believe you're a piece of shit today? because somebody told you that. Somebody told you that when you're a kid, or you tell yourself that. What do you say to yourself when you make a mistake? Do you call yourself stupid, idiot? Oh, I can't believe it. There you go again. Well, of course, same old shit. Think about what you're telling yourself. The most
Mm-hmm.
important thing is what you tell yourself. And it's none
Yep.
of my business it's none of my business what you think about me. It's only my business what I think about you and what I think about myself. Because what I think about you is detrimental to me. If I think you're
Mm-hmm.
an idiot, that just reflects back to me. You cannot put nothing out into the universe. You can't put anything out there or take anything from it that isn't taken from you multiplied or given back to you multiplied. That's a universal law. Everybody knows, and they talk about it, but no, very few practice it. Oh, what goes around comes around. You reap what you sow, karma. But yet, here's the problem with that: it doesn't happen immediately in the manifest plane, but it
Mm-hmm.
does happen immediately in here. Now, let's say we get off here and I say, Tino, man, don't fucking bother me anymore. I think you're an idiot. Okay, I just will be saying it to myself because that's who I'm saying it to, and
Yeah.
especially if that made you feel, if I intentionally do it to make you feel bad, you're doing that to yourself. I'm doing
Mm-hmm.
it to me. I'm not doing it to you. And when I'm saying that to you, if I really feel that, it's because I feel that way about myself. And
Mm-hmm.
I'll guarantee you, you do that enough, as sure as I live and breathe, down the road, somebody's going to do that to me. But what happens is people want to blame. They won't stop and contemplate, as I said earlier, and think, let me see. Man, that hurt when that guy said that to me. Have I ever done that to anybody? Oh, man, a year ago, I said that shit to Tino, man. Now I know how he feels. This stuff
Mm-hmm.
doesn't happen to us to make us, I don't know, it's not God punishing us. It's a way that we can learn about
Mm-hmm.
ourselves, about other people, about how we are all really connected somehow. Yeah, I'm connected to the axe murderer wherever he's at today. Somehow that is in me. I'm capable of that. Many people won't believe that they're capable of those things. Nazi Germany. Yes, we're all capable of certain things given the right circumstances and situations. And you have to be willing to admit that we all have that, if you want to call it the dark side. All these things are within us. Everything that happens in the world is within us, and we could very easily be doing those terrible things we see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, just to kind of follow up with that, what you were just saying about it's kind of like within us as well. I was reading a book once and it was saying it was kind of describing that uh how, bringing it back to what you were saying about Nazi Germany, how some of the citizens would actually, like, people were always wondering, like, how the hell could this whole society, like, think that, Jewish people are evil and do these, like, crazy crimes. And in the book, it was describing, like, well, a lot of the citizens actually were doing that as well. Not just the army and the military, but the
Right.
actual citizens of Germany were thinking that because over there, they were painting the picture that these people were just evil and wrong. And, um, they got their brains wired that way. So it's funny that, like, even if you think um even if you think you're a good kind-hearted person under the certain circumstances, like you were saying, and a lot of conditioning, a lot of brainwashing and manipulation in a way, you might be thinking differently. So
And that's the value of
it's
awareness.
it.
Hitler
Awareness
knew
is
that.
key.
Yeah, Hitler knew the power of suggestion and he used it. He constantly had the loudspeakers. He didn't
Yeah.
have social media, so he had the
Right, right.
loudspeakers in the streets over and over, throwing out that message about how they were the superior race. They were
Yeah.
going to take over the world. He knew the power of suggestion and these things. Well, we seen it in our latest 2 year thing we had there, the power of suggestion there, fear.
Mhm.
Someone told me that on Twitter, when this first started, there was like hundreds of thousands of, actually they were bots, but the messages talking about how terrible that thing was. I don't know where it, yeah, yeah, and it was
I
somebody
believe it.
put the, yeah. So I don't know where all that originated from. That's a whole other topic that I probably should stay away from. But anyway, but the power of suggestion was there too, and Hitler knew that. I mean, I'm not the kind of, when it comes to God, I know people talk about God, it's like it connotates religion, but for lack of a better word, I use that. I don't believe, I believe in Hitler. I don't believe in the heaven and hell type thing. Even the guy like Hitler, he was here to play a part. God is in all of us. I mean,
Mhm.
you see God in you see God in me. Sometimes the God in me is the only God anybody will ever see. Well, if you
Mhm.
believe there's a devil, I believe that's inside of us too. That maybe they'll only see the devil in me too, depending on what I do. But to access this power, this power in our consciousness, the only way that I see that it works, I mean, you can achieve great things like Hitler did, but that very power and law will crush you and destroy you, like it did him. Okay,
Mhm.
and almost anybody, a lot of people see people, maybe not like Hitler. Let's say some of these people that are really successful, but we know they're crooked or they're dishonest or they hurt people to get what they want. They're judging that person's success, what they call success or happiness, by what they see on the outside. You
Yeah.
don't know what that guy has to do to sleep at night, or if he can sleep. I mean, does
Mhm.
he have to drink? Does he have to take medication? To me, there's no true success without peace of mind and
Yeah.
contentment. And to access that power, going back to what I was saying, you have to get rid of the guilt, the shame, the anger, the resentment, all that crap, because that all blocks that off.
Mhm.
It's hard to be in contact with this power or to tap into it. I believe it's within all of us, the higher self, if you like. If you go through the day thinking about the people you screwed over, maybe you stole something from Walmart or from the job you worked at, or your last girlfriend, you lied to her, or maybe you stole from her, or any various number of character defects, sins, whatever you want to call them. These
Mhm.
things haunt you because you've actually done it to yourself. Many times that person doesn't even know about it, but you know about it. You see them, you get this feeling. These things block off that power. You got to get that crap out. And of course, go back if you've hurt people, you need to try to make that right. These are the things people don't realize. You're not doing it for them, you're doing it for yourself. Like, if,
Mhm.
let's say I stole from Walmart. Well, they really don't give a crap. You go back and try to pay them back, they're going to be like, I don't know what to tell you. But here's what you can do. Every time you buy something, let's say you buy a can of tuna, you stole something $10. Just run that sucker across the thing 4 or 5 times each time you're there until you get up the amount of money that you took from them. Because there's really no one to make direct amends to there. Okay, so that's the way. There's all kinds of ways that you can amend your past.
Yeah.
You do that for yourself, and then guess what? After you do that, you're free. It doesn't bother you anymore. It doesn't hinder you from tapping into this power. And the more of the garbage you get out, whether it's shame for something you did when you were a kid or whatever it happens to be, the more that power can flow through you and you can use, and it raises your levels of consciousness because
Mhm.
it connects you with the world more.
Mm. Yeah, man. I agree. It's like just kind of cleansing yourself of some of the traumas, some of the things that you have inside of you, because you're always going to be projecting that to other people, the
Exactly.
world. It's going to show up in your reality. That's why, like what you were saying, I agree with. Like, if you're just really mad at somebody, or you have like hate or like contempt in your heart for someone, it's not really affecting them. It's affecting you. I mean, that is
Yeah.
nothing, like their life isn't even affected by it at all. Like, you're the only one who's getting emotional because of it. Or, let's say you get fired from your job, or your girlfriend just dumped you. You're going to have that just sadness, or that just misery inside of you.
Right.
Whatever you think about the other person or the situation almost doesn't matter, because they're not even affected by it. You are. So it's all about how you think about it, how you feel about it, how you interpret that situation. Um, and that's the key. I think once you find that power within, it's everything else kind of just it's up to your perspective, how you want to look at it.
Yeah, and like I said, the power within us, we all have it. No, I mean, let's
Hmm.
let's take somebody. I don't know who do we know is great success. Name a person that's very successful.
Tony Robbins. I'll use
Okay,
him as an example.
what's the difference between Tony and us? Nothing really. He's just utilized that power. He's tapped in. He even has what was that book? The I read it, but that one about the. It's not the power within. It's the great.
um,
Yeah. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But
he got a
okay,
bunch of books. Yeah.
yeah, he's a good example of that. I mean, but see, he stepped through a lot of fear. He's made a
Hmm.
lot of things happen because he took the chance. He took the risk. You have to be willing to fail. I don't know how many times I failed. And that's another thing. Back to school, they teach us that failure is wrong. That's something. God,
Yes.
who wants to bring an F home to mom and dad? And
Right.
how are you looked at or how do you feel when you're a failure in the class?
Right. Right.
And it has nothing to do with your ability to create and to become successful. It has nothing to. How many times has anybody went to a job and they said, "Well, what kind of grades did you make in high school?" I don't think
Yeah,
they ever at, do they? Does
fucking
anybody
never.
even care? Does anybody even care? Your attitude will determine
Yeah.
your altitude. That's so
Hmm.
important. And guess what? As you were talking about, this connects with what you were saying earlier. Your attitude is really tied in with how you feel about yourself. If you got a bunch of, when I told you I looked in the mirror years ago and I didn't like what I saw, you know what? I didn't like what I saw because it was all about me.
Mm.
I did some things that look good on the outside, but it was all about what I'm going to get out of it later.
Hmm.
And that's what I saw. I saw the guilt, the shame, the anger, the resentment, all that stuff. I wasn't seeing my body. I was seeing that.
Yeah.
So today when I look in the mirror, that's all gone. But I will tell you this, it's an ongoing process because through the years as I've gotten rid of a lot of this stuff, other stuff pops up that I've long forgotten about. Some things I have to
Hmm.
go back and take care of. Some things I just have to feel. I have to
Hmm.
feel these things. Because all these emotions, sometimes when you're growing up, you don't feel safe. You're not in a position. For example, when my dog ran away, I was with my dad. You know, crying in front of my dad. I cried about that 2 years ago. That finally came up, and I
Mm.
felt those emotions that I didn't feel like I could feel back then. All the as silly as that may sound, all those things. And then there's other things too.
Yeah.
About my dad I believe he's an alcoholic. He quit drinking when I was about 13. But all those things form us. And as you had said earlier, we see life through these filters, and that's
Hmm.
why so many times people have these strong disagreements. They're both right
Yeah.
because
Right.
from their just through their filters, that's been their experience. So you
Hmm.
really can't come. That's why people nowadays really need to learn how to not agree with someone, but not be offended by their opinions. Everybody
Right.
seems to want to take offense because this guy doesn't agree with me, or they want to cancel somebody out because, I mean, they don't realize that is that person's truth.
Hmm.
It may not be your truth. I mean, let's say someone, God, all men are cheaters and liars, and they beat on you. Okay, she grew up seeing her dad beat on her mom. Every relationship she's been in, because she hasn't been aware to realize she's doing it to herself, she's got with an abuser. So in her mind, in her experience, yeah, all guys are abusers. Until she can stop and look at herself and think, why is this happening to me? Oh, let me see. When I was younger, I seen that growing up, and for some reason I'm attracted. That's what I'm used to. That's what
Hmm.
I'm comfortable with. That sounds strange, but that's what it is. Same way with
Hmm.
guys can do the same thing. They could be attracted to the type of women that maybe their
Right.
mom was, even though they hated their mother. They end up with a
Hmm.
woman like their mother. And this is where the awareness comes in, the consciousness that, hey, you know what? Why does this continue to happen to me? Well, what's going on in me? What am I thinking about? And a lot of times it's thoughts on a deep subconscious level. But if you take time to meditate, get
Yep.
quiet, ask for the answers, it may take a month, a year, a day, but they will eventually come. But that awareness. Everything is,
Hmm.
we are consciousness. That's really all we are. This body is an expression, yours is too, of our consciousness. That's my belief anyway. And it
Hmm.
will it will change and grow and stay healthy or get sick according to how we believe. Our life is created by our beliefs because we act on our beliefs. It's like I said about the women. Let's say you think all women are liars and cheats and they all sleep around. Well, guess what? You put 10 women out there, you'll be attracted to the one that does those very things.
Exactly.
The other ones could be angels, but you're going
Yep.
to go for the one. But not if you become aware, then you can
Hmm.
start asking yourself, where did I pick this up at? And it doesn't mean it's going to go away overnight, but when you can't know how to fix a problem unless you're where there is a problem. And the problem isn't her, it's you.
Hmm.
It's you.
Exactly.
Take the word blame out of your vocabulary. It's so important.
Hmm. And I think it takes a certain level of accountability, a certain level of ownership to realize that like we're in control of that. Because if you're just focused on one type of girl, or even just beyond women, you can take this in so many different directions. But if you're just focused on one type of outcome or one type of way, then that's all you're ever going to attract.
Right.
Because like what you focus on is what you attract into your life. So if you're constantly seeing women in your life that are spiteful, that are negative towards you, jealous, toxic, well, it's because your reality is saying that that's the only kind of women that I can get. That's the only kind of women that are out there. That's the only
Right.
kind of women that I've ever dealt with. And it's just going to continue. It's that like self fulfilling prophecy, like I was saying earlier. So yeah, man, I think it comes down to like once you know that these things are happening, then you have the power to change them.
Yeah. I'd say, have you ever read any Neville Goddard?
No, I haven't.
How about Thomas Troward?
No.
They're older. Both of them passed on now, but that's some really good books about consciousness
Yeah.
and the effects that your consciousness, of course, has on you. You know, we're the cause, and the outer
Mhm.
world is the effect. And
Yeah.
it's just it's so true. But then you have a lot of people that believe, well, that's all subjective. But as we spoke earlier, what we're having this conversation on at one time was subjective.
It's true.
A lot of people don't want to believe anything until they see it.
Hmm.
When it's to me, it's like it's amazing because everything you see was subjective before you
Before
see
you
it.
believe it. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, everything. I mean, I don't know exactly how the world was made and all that, but
Hmm.
some schools say it was made by thought first, but that's over my head, so I won't get into that. I'll talk about this world where we are. And yeah, everything here. I mean, I've created my life. I have, and
Yeah.
as I said, the thoughts. The problem is people give up,
Hmm.
especially when it looks like there again your senses, the evidence of the senses looks like it's not going to happen. It
Yep.
looks like it's not going to happen. Well, I'll go back to Roger Bannister, the 4 minute mile. That was proven by the greatest medical minds at the time, scientists. You couldn't run faster than a 4 minute mile.
Hmm.
You know what would happen if you did that? Your heart would explode. So when
Right.
Roger Bannister broke the 4 minute mile, he waited because he was a medical student to die. I mean, it sounds funny, but it's true. Now high school kids do it. Where
Right.
was the barrier? Where was the barrier? It was in the mind. It wasn't in the
Hmm.
physical. It was in the mind. And
Yeah.
around the world, if you study this, and I see that you do, look at some of the amazing things people can do.
Hmm.
Because there was a kid once that could jump up and kick like I don't know 6 feet high or something amazing. And they
Hmm.
asked the father, "How did he learn how to do that?" He said, "Well, I never told him it couldn't be done." And there we
Right.
are. We are taught limitations from the time we're born.
Hmm.
We are taught fears. They say we're only born with two fears: the fear of loud noises and the fear of falling. All the rest of them are learned. Fear
Hmm.
of rejection is one of the biggest ones.
Oh
Fear
yeah.
of rejection. And I'm sure you face that probably when you ask, maybe not on a high level, but you asked me to be on the podcast. I ask
Hmm.
people, I feel it too, so I know how it
Yeah.
is. But you got to walk through these fears because on the other side of your fears is what you desire. And
Mm.
every time you walk through that fear, you get closer to the big desire. But let me tell you this from a guy who's 62 years old. I've had a lot of goals in life. I've achieved a lot of them. But if you think that happiness comes when you reach the goal, you're terribly mistaken.
Yeah.
It's in the journey. I'll tell you what happens when you reach a big goal, and I've done it before. It's great for about a day, maybe a few hours, maybe 2 days. But then it's
Yeah.
like, is this all there is? It's
Hmm.
during, it's the people you meet, the relationships you form. Like talking to you here today, this is great. When I get off here, I'm going to feel electric. And that's
Yeah.
why I do this. That's what I discovered when I started doing this was when I
Hmm.
share this with the intention of helping people, it guess who it helps the most? I mean, a lot. Me.
Right.
Me. That's what I get out of it. So to satisfy my selfish desire of feeling good, like I wanted to do back when I drank and did drugs and partied and slept with women all over and all that shit, I have to be unselfish and give of what I've learned in my life to feel that feeling. So
Yep.
I call it altruistic selfishness. And that satisfies my ego. And I mean, I like to be in front of people. There's nothing wrong with that.
Hmm.
I used to use that to get laid and to get whatever, get fame and get all that stuff. So when I was boxing, but now I've
Hmm.
realized that I have to use, that desire is okay. It's okay. An ego is okay. It's not a terrible thing. It just
Hmm.
depends on what you allow it to do in your life. So I can take this egoic desire of wanting to be in front of people. Maybe I want to be famous. Yeah, I'd like to be famous. Okay. Um,
Hmm.
but if I use it to help people, then I'm using that egoic desire in a constructive, loving way. And thus it builds people up and it builds me up. The other way, if you use it just for yourself, like I did before, it destroys you, leaves you
Yeah.
empty and dead inside. So,
Hmm. I agree, man. I just made a on my Instagram. I actually just made a video about that. About like you have to. I think it starts with being selfish. Like you have to give to yourself, so you then have the ability to give back to others. It's like that
exactly.
that phrase of like you can't give from an empty cup. But I
Yeah,
agree, man. I think the more that you share your knowledge, the more that you're, aware of yourself. It comes back to that awareness piece. When you're aware of your limitations, aware of the things that you need to work on in life, now you have the tools to then share that to contribute back to community, to your family, to anybody around you, to
right.
basically help them through the exact same things that you helped yourself with. And I mean, you can kind of live your life the way you want, but honestly, I feel, in my opinion, that's the most fulfilling way to live. And yeah, man, I
Yeah,
think that's what it's all about.
yeah. What you said, it goes this the old saying that I have. It corresponds with what you said. Obviously, you can't transmit something you haven't got.
Right.
And there was a great man that once said, "Love your neighbor as you love yourself." So many
Mhm.
people talk about loving your neighbor, but as the same as you love yourself. If you don't love yourself, how are you going to transmit that? You can't love your neighbor if you don't love yourself.
Right.
And your neighbor is anybody out there, actually. And some people are hard to love, especially those the ones that are hard to love. That's the ones you probably need to love the most because
True.
those people are your greatest teachers. The
Mm.
ones that bother you the most, you've brought them into your life to learn from them. The ones
Mhm.
that hurt you the most, those are the ones that are teaching you the most. But you got to get that blame word out. You got to ask yourself, why did I bring this? What is this? Why is this happening for me? Is life happening to you or is life happening for you? I
Yep.
prefer to think it's happening for me instead of to
Mhm.
me. It's much more productive. I got to get out of here. I got a Spanish lesson at. We can do this again sometime. This is great.
Yeah, I was gonna say we're at the top of the hour, so I was gonna end it here anyway. I think that was a great segue to close it out. Is there any last minute statements or things you want to say before we hop off?
Um, I'll say this to anybody who's listening: you can be, have, or do whatever you want in life. You just have to decide what you want. As I said earlier, most people don't know what they want. Sit
Yeah.
down and contemplate what you want in life. And when those thoughts come up about, I don't have the money to do that, I, I, I'm not smart enough, I don't have the education, or whatever it happens to be, that's all bullshit. That's bullshit. That's your conscious mind limiting you from shit you've learned through your life. There are no limits to what you can do. Only the limits you press and impose upon yourself.
Mhm.
I'll stop with that.
Love that. Yeah, I'll kind of follow up with that as well. Kind of focusing on the things that are right in front of you. Be aware enough to know what the next steps are. Just take it small, one day at a time. Have these big goals, but then just focus on the things that are directly in front of you. You don't have to
Right.
focus so much on the outcome. And obviously,
Do,
we've been
do the
streaming.
next right thing. Do the next right thing. Just like
Yeah,
you said. Yeah.
it's well said. Yeah, man. And if you're hopping in late to the stream, obviously go back and check out the recording. We've been streaming for about an hour here, so there's a lot of gems and things in here. Very enlightening conversation, I think. So you're gonna want to go back and check it out. I'll probably go back and watch it again just because we talked about so much. But I just want to thank Mark for coming on, man. I appreciate you, and we'll definitely do one of these again for sure.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Glad to be of service.
100%. So I'll leave all of Mark's links down below, his YouTube, his IG. If you're just checking in, make sure you subscribe to the channel. If you're new here, like the video, all that fun YouTube stuff. But make sure y'all check in next week for the next live stream, and I'll catch you guys next week.
Take care.
Okay.